Peace, love, and law. The more we expand, the more we grow. The more we grow, the more we know. And the more we know, the more we find out we don't know that much. Therefore, we shall expand today on the topic of Belizean laws. So, if you're interested in the topic of Belizean laws like me, follow me and join me in the next few minutes. I'm just chatting here with my good friend Chat, and I asked Chat, what's the relationship with the Director of Public Prosecutors, which is the state, and His Majesty the King. Right? So then this is what I'm going to read out. So we're going to go over this. So follow me along, or follow along with me. Let's learn a little bit about how Belizean law works, especially in constitutional matters, right? So it says here, great question. The relationship between the Director of Public Prosecutions, the state, and His Majesty the King in Belize touches on the country's constitutional monarchy, legal sovereignty, and executive authority. Here's how it works. Belize, a constitutional monarchy and parliamentary democracy. Okay. Belize is an independent sovereign state under a constitutional monarch with His Majesty King Charles III as its ceremonial head of state. It's a ceremonial thing, right? Represented locally by the Governor General. Okay, so the Governor General represents His Majesty King Charles in a ceremonial way, right? Just ceremonies. The Constitution of Belize, 1981, recognizes the King as King of Belize, distinct from his capacity as monarch of the UK or other Commonwealth realms. It's interesting. Okay, he recognizes. So I'm going to probably ask him where in the Constitution does it reference that it recognizes the king as the King of Belize. So anyway, let's continue reading. The king's role in the state. Well, his function is as head of state. So he has three roles. Look, he has head of state, executive, and he has judicial functions. He functions in that way. Okay, this is what is performed by the king via the Governor General. Okay, performs this function, then vested in the king, and then the king versus defendants. Okay, so the nature would be a ceremonial, symbolic, exercised on advice of ministers, and then eventually criminal prosecutions in the name, or in the king's name. So this is basically when you go to any court right here, a lower court, a magistrate's court. This gets into that. If you ever go into, like, let's say I don't know, you driving without a license, or no insurance or something like that. It's it's a victimless crime. It's considered a crime under as an offense against the king. So they bring it in the king's name. So it says here, all criminal prosecutions are carried out in the name of the king. That's true. As in the king versus the defendant, or R versus the name of the defendant, where R stands for Rex, which is Latin for king. This legal fiction, see there, it's a legal fiction, it's just a fiction, means the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecution, prosecutes on behalf of His Majesty. Now remember, this is a ceremonial thing. They practice as a ceremony on behalf of His Majesty. Isn't that interesting? It's a ceremony, but only as a representative of the state of Belize, not of the crown, in a personal sense. Yeah, that makes a difference. Right? It makes a difference. Only as a representative of the state, right? Which is, they say, the government, right? The state of the, I guess that's what the assumption is, right? But not of the crown in a personal sense. Okay, not from the king himself. The king isn't really, saying, I'm going to take you to jail. No, people here are saying it in his name as a ceremonial thing. It's a ceremony. That's crazy. How the DPP fits in. Okay, the DPP is a constitutional officer of the state of Belize. He's a constitutional officer. Okay, he or she, right? He or she, appointed under Chapter 7, Article 108 of the Constitution. Okay, so the DPP acts independently from the executive. Okay, though the authority to prosecute is inherited like a will, inherited from the king's residual prerogative of justice, a ceremonial thing, right? Okay, so in effect, the DPP prosecutes on behalf of the state in the name of the king under independent constitutional authority. Independent from the Constitution, right? Ceremonial in the name of the king. Fiction. Isn't that interesting? It's very interesting. Those who know, right? Number 4, case names and symbolism. Criminal cases, R versus Smith. R equals Rex, which is king, or Regina, queen. Somebody once said that doesn't. It's not Regina. It's what do you say? Regina. I said, what? Yeah, it's like a Regina. He says, yeah. Like, oh, okay, like vagina. Yeah. Anyways, anyway, we know it as Regina here, right? So anyway, depending on the monarch. Now, civil cases involving the government. The crown might be represented in other forms. Okay, how else would the crown be represented, right? Like the Attorney General of Belize. But this would be more on a civil matters, right? Okay, so this structure is inherited from English common law, where the crown, now the state, right, is the ultimate source of legal authority. A ceremonial thing. especially in criminal justice, right? Especially in criminal justice, because I mean, think about it, man. There's a group of people that have like these victimless crimes that end up mainly in the magistrate's court. Obviously, real crime like kill somebody, you I don't know, you steal, or they steal from you, or these are like real criminal things, like God's law being broken, let's say, right? That we know. You broke a contract. That's like, that's another one too. So these go like at the high court, right? Most of these right here. But then there are these other fictions, really. They all, well, not really fictions, but all these people that get brought in and just goes through all these prosecutions, victimless crimes, weed, cannabis. How can that be a crime? Who is it hurting? Who is it hurting? There's no victim. Zero victim. I mean, alcohol is how much victims, right? But come on. But anyway, just saying, victimless crime. So anyway, we're going back to this. Let me concentrate. Summary. Entity. Look, the entity, the legal entity now, mind you. All these are legal entities. All these are fictions. Look, this is a fiction, right? This is a fiction. His Majesty the King. We know it's a fiction because they're saying that, hey, he's not really prosecuting anybody here. It's just these people who represent that vato, like, sheesh. Okay, so His Majesty the King. This is a ceremonial head of state. It's all a ceremony. They're all getting these authorities from a ceremonial source. It's very strange. Ceremonial head of state. Now I know this is supposed to be normal. I get it. I know. For me, this is not. No, this is weird. This is a weird ceremony because it's like. We'll get back to that. Ceremonial head of state, prosecutions done in his name. Governor General, King's local representative, formalizes appointments. He formalizes these appointments. Like he makes these appointments. Oh, I appoint you as minister. That's a formal thing. Okay, that's what the Governor General does. Yes, he does that for the Prime Minister. Then the state of Belize is the sovereign political body. Makes sense. Employs the DPP, listen to the word, employs the DPP, enacts laws. That's the legislator, right? So the DPP prosecutes crime on behalf of the state in the king's name. Which crime? There's those high court crimes, those lower court crimes. Which one? What kind? Victim? No victim? Which contract, debt. So this is very interesting because when we get into what exactly is happening in the court in a financial sense, right? That's what makes this whole thing interesting, because we learn about when somebody gets prosecuted or taken to jail or charged for some type of victimless crime. In order for you to get out and get your freedom again, they require you to sign a promise to pay His Majesty the crown, which is, again, they're saying by law it's a ceremonial thing. It's a religious shit, Sorry, it's a religion because it's ceremony, and this is a old ceremonial thing. It's traditionally from passed down. It's inherited. So obviously, this is separate from what we are made to believe as the laws, because there's no debt, there's no contract really with most of the individuals and that state, really, to say. Only there's implied contracts, meaning on everybody's conduct, just agreeing to every benefit that the government hands out without reserving much rights at all. So a lot of rights are waived when engaging and accepting benefits and privileges from the government, being that the government is operating on ceremonies in the higher levels, and we don't have to be part of that, because obviously that's why if you form a religion, a church, there's no taxes to be made, because obviously you're not part of that. So you've chosen to be another ceremony, right? To have, so trusts, when we have these trust, family trust, legacy trust, any trust, where you're where one is, I would say, securing rights and understanding what that means, because we have to interact, especially right now, through commerce, commercially, because everything is just connected now. The whole world is connected through commerce right now. So then we need to everybody operates through vessels that travel through international commercial interactions, and these vessels are what is known as our persons. And a person is basically all fiction, because it's going to interact, it's going to end up in, against His Majesty the King, the Governor General's representative ministers, right? The state of Belize, the DPP, these are all fictions, and this is, so our person is what, the rights of our person too is what we can secure. Not only our rights, but the rights of our person. And we learn that by getting a little bit more acquainted and expanding on trust, the laws of trust, right? And obviously the commercial laws. So there's those two right there are very important, because they're interacting all the time, especially now, every day. It's just every interaction and exchange of paper money is a trust and a commercial and exchange and interaction. It's it's all property rights. So it's very interesting. So, where in the Constitution does it recognize the king as the king of Belize? Where the hell does it say that? Let's see. Because I don't remember finding that. I mean, could I have missed it? Is that what's happening? What's going on here? Okay, so Part 1, Section 1, the state. This section declares Belize a sovereign democratic state of Central America, and from its framing upon independence since September 21, 1981, the Constitution establishes the country as an independently monarchy with the Queen, now King, as the head of state. So just because, okay, alright. Constitutional monarchy structure, Section 15 of the Belize Independence Order in 1981, mirrored in Section 1 of the Constitution, established Belize as a constitutional monarchy under the Queen as head of state, represented by the Governor General. Though originally worded Queen, legal interpretation naturally now refers to His Majesty King Charles III, continuing the monarch role. Okay. 3. Distinct role, King of Belize. There you go. While the Constitution does not repeatedly refer to King of Belize, it's expressly clear that upon independence, the monarch is the sovereign of Belize. Yeah, that's true. In their Belizean capacity. Yeah, that's true. Forming what's known in the constitutional law as Crown in Right of Belize. Belize is one of 15 Commonwealth realms whose monarch, all being Charles III, is separately the King of Belize, not merely as UK sovereign, but in his own right. Alright. Constitutional aspects and the details. Formation. Independence in 1981, Belize became a constitutional monarch under the Queen. Okay, the head of state is, okay, King Charles, you know that, represented by the monarch. The monarch represented by Governor General acting on Belizean advice, and Crown's legal identity known as the Crown Right of Belize. Final take. Constitution enshrines the monarch as the symbolic and legal head of state, granting all executive, legislative, and judicial powers. Granting. Who's granting? Look, this right here is trust. Once you get acquainted with trust more and more and more, you don't miss that. As soon as you hear granting, that's a trust. See, the symbolic legal head of state grants powers and duties, and to all executive, legislative, and judicial powers. So it's the people is just participating as subjects that are applying to the titles that are deriving from the head of state, all being crown and ceremonial, and all being trusts, making the Constitution a trust indenture agreement, or a trust agreement. They're definitely a trust agreement. Anyway, so let's get back. Legislative and judicial powers in its sovereign name. You see, in its name, everything in its name, it's all ceremonial. It's passed down, it's all trust, though not phrased with the title King of Belize in every clause. It's an integral constitutional principle. I know, it's a fucking trust. Solidified at independence and reflected in Belize's legal framework and jurisprudence. Would you like to explore specific sections like the Governor General's powers, or how this role intersects with executive authority, and your earlier queries on prosecutions and property rights? I asked about that? Oh, no, okay, I guess. But anyway, I am going to cut this now. I think we're 20 minutes. Yeah, 20 minutes in. Well, we have learned a little bit more, and we've expanded a little more. So this is very interesting. Thank you for tagging along. Appreciate it. Hope you learned some too. Until next time, peace.